Welcome back to How to Produce Music That Will Get Licensed and Make You Money. Brought to you by howtolicenseyourmusic.com and learnaudioengineering.net. This is the third and final video in the first course on audio production on howtolicenseyourmusic.com, with many more to come. This video will cover subjects such as vertical and horizontal approaches to music and which one is the priority, A being the fear of and how to overcome it, advanced mastering techniques such as checkerboard A being, and a plugin that you can use to actually learn on your own how to master. So let's get right into it. So I've been working on this track a bit more, doing some mixing since the last video, and I'm going to play it, and what I'm going to listen for right now, so we're going to actually be in a real session right here. You can observe me working, and this is near the end of the final mix, and I'm listening now for the priority. And the priority is timing and rhythm and groove and feel. The reason for that is the average listener who has not been trained in music like we have been listens to music way differently than a producer or engineer or musician. And it's the hardest thing that it takes for me to get across to my students is how to listen just like an average listener. We call it Iowa ears, like the average person from Iowa who has never gone to any course or school or knows nothing whatsoever about music. And they can tell you two things. A, they like the music, or B, they don't. Now, an interesting thing about someone who doesn't know anything about music and is, quote, tone deaf. And it's very interesting that the term tone deaf is used. Notice that that's a vertical aspect of music. It's melody, it's notes in a chord, the harmonies that are created. Those are all vertical. Horizontal is rhythm, and the priority is horizontal, which is rhythmic. Tone deaf would describe somebody who is basically vertical deaf. And that's very interesting because it leaves the fact that even the average listener can perceive rhythm much better than harmony and melody. So that becomes a priority. This even comes down to the point where you're dealing with music supervisors. They understand this. And it holds true at all levels of music. So here we go. We're going to roll the track, and I'm going to be listening for rhythmic aspects that might be off or out or not together. So that tape is rolling. So far, so good. Sounds good. Sounds good still. So we have a build up here. Good so far. Okay, right there. I'll play it again. There was a bass note that was a little late. It was right here at around 367. You can hear that again. These are the types of things you're listening for. Play it again. Let's go in there and look at it. There it is. Right here, it's this note. Right here, 367. We're going to magnify that a little bit more. Right here, I'm going to pull this note over, we take it off of Snap to Grid, go back in, find the note. I'm going to pull it a little bit to the left. Let's hear it now. Much better. That's the type of thing we're listening for. And that's an example right there of the horizontal aspect of music being the priority. And we will now move on to the next part of this particular video, which is A-Being. A-Being simply means comparing A with B. So you have two recordings and you're listening to both of them. Now there's two aspects to A-Being. One of them is developing your ears as a mixing engineer and as a mastering engineer. And by the way, I consider you, anyone listening to this, a mastering engineer. Every student I've ever had, and I learned this after about 5 years of teaching. For the last about 25 years I've been teaching students, I discovered something, which is this, is that if you teach someone just how to mix, they're not going to get it. They're not going to fully get it. You need to teach them how to master. You need to teach them where their product is going to. Otherwise, they have no idea what they should be putting into the hands of the final person on the assembly line. In teaching students this, I found out that they each became great mastering engineers. And there's a myth that will bust right now, which is that every mixing engineer should pass his track on to another set of ears to master it, because you'll never master it as good as somebody else. And that's false. I encourage you to master. I encourage you to learn how to master, and in fact, it's the best thing to start learning. We're actually going to get into some of that in just a few minutes here. To begin with, just A-Being in general, I want to say this. To develop your ears, the most important thing you could do is to take your top, let's say your 5 tracks that you love how they've been mixed and mastered, commercial tracks, tracks that you have not done. And these would be things you're trying to emulate, that you're trying to live up to, that you're trying to build up to and raise your standards to sound like. And they're recordings that you yourself respect and enjoy. Now, this is something that sounds so simple, but believe me, not enough people do this. You need to listen to those favorite tracks of yours in your studio. And you need to just relax and listen. In fact, you could be doing other things in your studio while listening. Listen to those tracks over and over and over in the environment that you will be mixing and mastering in. You need to get to know your speakers and your systems. And I encourage you also to use more than one system to listen through. What we're going to be doing now, we're going to be mastering right now. So we're going to actually get into mastering. And we're going to be doing something called checkerboard A-Being while we master. And I'm going to show you a plugin that you can use to learn how to master on your own. Okay, I've set up a mastering folder, a separate project. And this is important. Organization, as we mentioned earlier. This project folder has the name of the song, Simone, From the Middle of My Heart, and then the word mastering. Simple, stupid, yes, but it will save your life. Organization, as I said, is 85% of the game. So I encourage you, when you do a mastering session, you start out by setting up your project folder with the name of the song, the word mastering, and then the number of the mastering file that you'll be mastering. So this number here represents this stereo bounce track. Here's your left and right channels. Here's your stereo bounce. You notice a lot of space here between the waveforms. That's called headroom. You don't want to bring in a file that looks like this. You don't want to do it. Like, this is what it'll probably look like once it's mastered somewhere in here. But there's no headroom in here. There's nowhere to go. It's loud already. And the process of mastering will increase the energy of that track. So you want to bring it in with about -6 to -12 dB headroom, which means instead of being up at 0 near clipping, you just want to lower the volume down when you're bouncing it out of your mix. Okay, so we're going to start this song, and this is the mix that you'll hear. And now the plugin that I told you about.